Get Greg to turn off the intro there. Thank you very much. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of Council, Tuesday, June 13th, 2023, 6 p.m. at the Council Chambers. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Inkakatma and the Silt people. Councillor Egan, I'm not sure where she is. She's not joining us tonight? Okay, thank you. Is she on the thing? No? Okay. Okay, thank you. Late items, none. Any public input? Thank you very much. Adoption of minutes. Regular council meeting minutes, May 23rd, 2023. Recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting be held on May 23rd, 2023 be adopted. Councillor Newman, Councillor Petrozzi, any mistakes, any errors? Oh, Councillor Charney?
I don't think Michelle Pierce is spelt with an S. I may be incorrect, but I do not think.
Now we're reaching. I don't know.
Oh, but I'm pretty sure it's not spelt with an S. That's how it's in the email that we received. Okay, so I may be corrected on that. Okay.
Nice try on
that one.
Good one. Anyone else want to take a shot? Okay, good.
Not today.
All in favor? Opposed? And we move on to 5.1, public hearing. Public hearing OCP Amendment Bylaw number 2336 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2294, Midday Valley Road. Public hearing. Good evening, everyone. This public hearing is convened to consider the following proposed bylaw. City of Merritt Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 2353, 2023, and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2354, 2023. The purpose of this public hearing is to allow any person with an opportunity to make a verbal presentation to state their views. Written materials may also be submitted up to the close of the public hearing. These are given equal weight to the verbal presentations. We ask that everyone present tonight treat each other with dignity and respect, regardless of a person's views. It takes courage to share an opinion publicly, and as a council, we want to foster an environment where everyone feels comfortable doing so. Although there is no time limit on the presentation at the public hearings, I ask that if your position has already been taken up by an earlier speaker, that you try to keep your comments to a minimum. This is not meant to stop anyone from presenting. I'm only asking for you to be sensitive to the time frame that we have this evening. Thank you for that. The public hearing is not a time for council to debate with individual presenters. However, council does wish to hear your views, and where further clarity is required, council may ask questions of the speaker. So we will move into the public meeting. And again, it's the OCP Amendment Bylaw. Mr. Laws, can you confirm that all statutory advisements requirements are met, and if any written submissions were received and circulated?
Thank you, Your Worship. The public notice was placed as required in the June 1st and June 8th editions of the Merritt Herald, and the notices were mailed out, and the sign was stuck on the property as is required. No written submissions have been received prior to the hearing, so none have been circulated to you. Thank you very much.
Mr. McCray-Williams, for staff presentation on the issues in the bylaw. Sorry, it's been a while since I've done a public meeting, so I'm a little rusty.
That's okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As Greg mentioned, the first and second reading of this bylaw amendment was brought forward for the subject property of 1227 Midday Valley Road on May 9th, 2023. I will highlight sort of the key items here for consideration. So to restate what was stated at the May 9th council meeting, the proposed OCP amendment and rezoning are to achieve the following: align the OCP and zoning maps on the subject property, prepare for removal of split zone parcels to be finalized through a subdivision process, to increase park dedication by just over 1 acre, to ensure public access to the park from Midday Valley Road, accomplished by park trail access from Midday Valley Road, to encourage viable and investment-ready light industrial land parcels tailored to future use. So again, as stated in the May 9th meeting, there are no new land use designations in the OCP being removed or introduced. This is a realignment of existing land use on the subject property. There are also no zones in the zoning bylaw being removed or introduced. This is a realignment of existing zones on the subject property. I do want to highlight a number of potential risks, financial or otherwise. So at this stage of the rezoning to OCP amendment, this application has not been referred to local First Nations for review and comment. During a desktop review, no archaeological sites were identified on the site. However, the subject property is located in an area identified for potential high chance finds for archaeological sites, remains, and/or artifacts. An archaeological overview assessment was not requested during the OCP amendment and rezoning application process, so it is unknown if there are significant archaeological sites on the subject property. An environmental site assessment was not requested during the OCP amendment and rezoning the application process, so it is unknown if there are any species at risk or critical habitat identified on the site at this time. And senior staff have shared that there is minimal likelihood of future development on the adjacent Crown land parcel due to steep slopes. However, until the city has acquired the land for park space or the Crown has dedicated it parkland, this trail connection between the proposed park and existing adjacent park is not yet guaranteed. And please see the attachments and the staff report dated April 26, 2023 for more details.
Thank you very much. So seeing, I will ask any member of the public who wishes to speak for or against to come forward and do so, stating their name, address at the start. Anyone? I'll call for a second time for anyone who wishes to speak for or against. And I'll ask for a third time if anyone has anything they wish to speak for or against. Hearing no further information, it is required for this bylaw. I will now ask council for a motion that the City of Merritt OCP Amendment Bylaw number 23532023 and Zoning Bylaw number 23542023 be returned to the regular council for further readings. I need a mover. Councillor Etchart, Councillor Hogan, any questions? All those in favor? That we will close the public meeting. Okay, moving on. 8.1. Full public meetings went so smoothly. Fees and charge amendment bylaw 23552023 to be introduced by Mr. Lawes. Mr. Lawes, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a pretty minor change that we're recommending be made to the bylaw staff, but we think it speaks to an important point regarding reconciliation, and at least one minor step towards that the City of Merritt can take. So in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to actions, one of those related to the reclamation of Indigenous names for people who had lost them for whatever reason during the residential school system, during the 60s scoop, etc. The call to action was for fees and charges related to this to be waived for a 5-year period. This call was made in 2015, so that initial time period has now actually expired, but it seems that a large number of governments across Canada, federally, provincially, and municipally, are basically just getting to it now, and unfortunately we are, as with everyone, a little behind on this particular call, so this is why it's coming to you at this point. So if anyone is changing their name in British Columbia for whatever reason, they must have fingerprints taken at an RCMP station, and so that's the case in Merritt as it is everywhere else. If a person is seeking to reclaim an Indigenous name which was historically lost, then at this point the Federal Ministry for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship have waived their fees for any paperwork which is required. The British Columbia Vital Statistics Agency have waived their fees that are required. And so at this point in time, if anyone was going through that process in Merritt, the only order of government that they would owe a fee to would be the City of Merritt in order to have their fingerprints taken. We believe that this is unfortunate, it's inappropriate in our minds, and so we're looking for your authorization to change the bylaw in order to remove this. There are existing provisions related to nonprofit organizations where people do not need to pay for their fingerprints to be taken, so the recommendation is simply that in that section of the bylaw that anything related to fingerprints for the reclamation of an Indigenous name be added to that section. If then council, in say 5 years' time, after the call to action's 5-year period, if we say starting it now, expired, council could choose at that point to reinsert it, or they could simply leave it as a no-fee thing moving forward. We don't believe that the impact on any city revenues will be remotely substantial. When we consulted with the detachment, they said that it was a very rare occasion for this to come forward. But I can tell you that it has come up at least once recently, which is why this is coming to you now. And actually, on an operational level, as staff, we waived the fee on that occasion because we thought it was the appropriate thing to do. So we're now asking for your authorization to change the bylaw for that in all instances going forward.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. So before I read out the recommendations, is there any questions or comments on that at all? So the recommendation in front of us is that Council read fees and charges amendment bylaw 2355-2023 a first time. Councillor Newman? Councillor Etchart? I'm assuming that groan was...
That was no problem for me.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That Council read fees and charges amendment bylaw 2355-2023 a second time. Councillor Petrosi, Councillor Oldman, and all those in favor? Opposed? That Council read fees and charges amendment bylaw 2355 and 2023 a third time. Councillor Etchart did his eyebrows. Councillor Charney. Any further questions? I saw the eyebrows go up, so that's it. All those in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much.
Click once for yes and then twice for no.
Tell you. That's where it's going. Returning by popular demand from 5.1, 8.2. OCP bylaw 2353 zoning and zoning bylaw 2354 from the public meeting. Okay, so OCP bylaw 2353 and zoning bylaw were given the first two readings on May 9th, 2023, and public hearing on June 13th, which was tonight. They are presented now for potential third reading and adoption. So the recommendation that I have is that OCP amendment bylaw number 2. Oh, sorry. Oh, gee whiz, I got so tied up there. Yep, that's you.
Good. Just a comment before we go into third reading. I have a small concern with how it's laid out right now, and I'm not sure how we need to approach it, but obviously we're designating a park area in the middle of a development, and it's only in regards to the park that I'm concerned with. It's the access to the park, and where we have a trail that will lead to the park, but we have no idea of where we're going to house cars or have an area for people to access that park. And Midday Valley Road is in the middle of a light industrial area and somewhat industrial area where there is no sidewalks, there is no sides of the roads to walk on. And I'm just wondering, it's great that we're taking this initiative to have a park or increase the area of a park that's already there, but with no access or trail or parking to get to said park.
So I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I read it, it mentioned that this was something that we could be looking at as we move along, and I'm assuming most of these areas will be people living there as far as the parking. I mean, from what I've read, if somebody wants to take a stab at it. Lacey, please.
Yeah, so this is again just the OCP amendment and rezoning process. So right now we're just looking with a realignment of the park parcels, the future light industrial parcels as well as future development parcels. So currently through this process we will have trail access from Midday Valley Road to this proposed park here. There is an adjacent park that's not actually within this rezoning parcel that's on the other side that we currently have access to because there's no development yet. But then through the subdivision stage, we will look at road access, lot line adjustment, and things like that. But this is for industrial lots, not residential lots too, to be clear.
Okay. Councilor Newman?
And I am clear on what the development is. My concern is access to the parks. I know there's been considerable surveying done up on the subject property as it stands right now. And I can't get a clear grasp on where the access point is going to be to get to the park. So I know this is the preliminary stages of it, but I just want to make sure that it's clear we are giving an access to a park property off of a major road, which is also a truck route. And I'm not sure that it's necessarily the best way to access a park.
Just wanted to add, and Lacey, please correct me if I'm wrong, the intent is that bottom strip that you see is going to be road that is going to lead to parking within that park parcel. So that would be all part of the city development down the road. So it is turning off of Midday Valley Road down that strip, so you're driving up there to an area where people would park.
So that is the intention then?
That is the intent, as far as I understand.
Just wanted to hear that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Etchart.
Yeah, any drawings that we had seen in the past, there was always an idea of a parking lot near that side and then access from Hill and also this being the secondary road. So I don't think there was ever any intention, but this has never moved far enough to get to that stage of planning, so it was kind of a moot point. Anyway, just
Keep talking.
just adding in my 2 cents.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions before I blabber on here? Blabber away, thank you. So the recommendation in front of us, that OCP Amendment Bylaw 2353 be read a third time. Councillor Newman, Councillor Etchart, thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Recommendation that OCP Amendment Bylaw number 2353 be adopted. Councillor Etchart, Councillor Charney, any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? None. Recommendation that zoning amendment bylaw number 2354 be read a third time. Councillor Etchart, Councillor Ogan, any questions? Seeing none? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation that zoning amendment bylaw number 2354 be adopted. Councillor Petrosi, Councillor Etchart, any questions? Last chance. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for the explanations as well. Appreciate that. Thank you. 9.1. Here's your big moment, Mr. Strang. Buyout contract for temp HP to be introduced by Mr. Strang.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is to do with the city's transitional housing program. That was before council this prior council meeting. I think it was the prior one, maybe the one before, talking about enlarging the program for an additional 12 months or extending the program for an additional 12 months. This particular motion before you discusses what happens with those mobile home units at the end of the program. So our preference and what we're certainly trying to enable is for those homes to be purchased by the residents within them, given that they have the desire and the means to achieve that. So what we have prepared is has gone through a lawyer and our own internal ROC team as what we feel a buyout contract should look like. Now, this is a buyout contract that will be offered to all of the tenants that are in the properties. Just for a bit of review, we have two types of tenants in the properties. There's directly flood affected, and those are tenants who either had their own homes or rental homes directly affected and were displaced immediately by the floods. And then there is a second form of tenant, and those are tenants who have been unable to secure housing elsewhere in the city of Merritt as a result of many of the accommodations not being available after the flood. So we have proposed two different types of buyout contracts to recognize the two different types of tenants in these. The directly flood impacted tenants, we are proposing that they receive a small discount on the purchase price of this. We are able to, thanks to support from our provincial partners, we are able to offer a 5% discount from fair market value to those people. To anyone else who is just in the units because of general lack of housing, we are still able to offer a fairly attractive rate of purchase. Now, what we have done for I can't remember the term we used in the contract, but it's basically landed cost of these units. So what the units cost to purchase, install utilities, etc. There are many other programs that we have, or many other costs that we have with our transitional housing program that we're not attributing to these units themselves. We have some mental health supports that are available for people. We have some moving supports. We have a lot of other things that are just inherent in a flood transitional housing program. We are not putting those onto the cost of the house. So this is purely if you were to do a bulk order of 31 homes, you'd obviously get a discounted rate and a discounted rate to install them. We're dividing that by 31, more or less. The 4 bedrooms are slightly more than the 2 bedrooms, of course, because the construction methodology is different. So we've outlaid that total constructed to a total landed cost for each of the units and provided a 5% discount to the people in phase 1. Secondarily, one other thing that we've been able to add to this with the nod from the province is that one of the really important things that we wanted to do is we wanted to keep these homes in the community. Now, they are in a third-party owned mobile home park right now. And of course, when you buy an asset, it's your asset and you can move it to wherever you would like to move it. So they could move it to Lower Neck or they could move it to Nova Scotia because of course it would be their asset. So what we've been able to do is write into the contract a $5,000 moving fee allowance if the mobile home is moved to somewhere else within the city of Merritt. And what that does is it allows us to retain the housing stock in the city of Merritt and retain the tax base within the city of Merritt. And that is designed to offset the cost of actually physically having a truck come in, move the unit. If they elect to stay in the current mobile home park, they're responsible for negotiating a contract with the mobile home park owner, and of course that $5,000 moving allowance would not be payable. Those are generally the, I guess, things that are different from a normal buyout contract in this. The rest is a whole lot of legal jargon that took a while to go through and make up and understand. And Greg's laughing at me because this is just the wording that he speaks every day, but it took a while for me. I would love to entertain any questions on the proposal, if there are any.
Just want to say thanks for all your hard work. I read the proposals over. They make great sense and well thought out, and you guys have done a great job. So questions, Councilor Newman?
Yeah, I just had a question in regards to the relocation. With obviously not a lot of available properties in Merritt, do you see that that's going to be an option for many?
We're not in a position where we can dictate what is available, what isn't available, what people do with it. There are certainly some other mobile home parks within the city of Merritt limits that they could move to, and I can think of two. And, who knows, by December 31st of 2025, there may be another one permitted in the city. So the only stipulation on that is that the home has to remain in the city of Merritt. And there, I think, are some actual properties within the city of Merritt, fee simple properties outside of a mobile home park that these units would qualify. They are ZZ 240 compliant, which means they can go in a mobile home park, but they are also modular homes, which means they were under thank you. I don't know how you know that, but that's impressive. They are A 277 compliant, which means they are manufactured homes as well. So they're very well maybe properties. I can't state that for sure. He probably knows way more about that than me and many other things. But as long as it stays in a permitted area in the city of Merritt, be it in a mobile home park or in a permitted property, they would qualify for that.
Thank you.
Councilor Richard.
I like the proposal, and I think that I would be more interested in looking at the market value option instead of the setup cost, because that can really fluctuate. And sometimes maybe the market value could have increased because the availability of manufactured homes is, hard. The costs have increased over the last 3 years substantially. So I know that from the insurance industry, rates of what people are finding to replace homes has increased significantly. And I think that if we said, the purchase price less 5%, there could be quite a large price difference. But I guess it really depends on what everyone else thinks, because if we take the setup cost of a 2-bedroom unit at $201,000 less the 5%, looking at that 2 years from now, it could be quite a bit harder to find a home like that. So there could be quite a difference to consider anyway. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. I do have a comment on that. We've tried to, the city's not looking, or at least the ROC in recommendations to council, we are not recommending that the city look to make money on these through property price appreciation, which is why we put it forward as this. And you're absolutely correct, it may represent a very good value for whoever buys these properties. And, you know, to us, we feel like, especially for people that have, you know, been through the flood and have some housing issues because of that, we're happy to be able to provide that opportunity because we are able to spend that initial cash outlay because of some generous grants by the province. We're looking to recover that outlay and reinvest it into other housing solutions down the road. So we don't want to recommend that we're in a situation where the price increases because of market value. We're looking to get out what the actual value paid was. And conversely, although I don't think this will happen, if the fair market value does drop, there is a provision in this particular contract. Like, let's say the economy goes into an absolute recession and the price of housing crashes and falls in half. There is a provision in here where the city pays for an independent third-party appraisal, which will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $350. The city pays for that, and it will be the lower of the fair market appraisal or the landed cost at the date of installation. I personally don't think that's going to happen, but we have thought that through in the case that we do have some sort of recession or crash, that we're still offering these things at a very reasonable rate for people.
Councillor Charney.
I think it's extremely well written, and I agree with what you just said at the end there. May I point out some typographical errors?
It's been through 2 lawyers, so I would love
just on your portion there on page 2, you have TEHMP instead of TEMHP.
That is me. That is definitely.
Okay, that's you.
Yeah.
Okay, on the first page of the draft, so page 41 of 158, B, second and last sentence, have been unable to find housing in them. They've left out.
Is that in the contract?
Yes.
Okay.
So that 2 is left out.
We can certainly change that.
And on page 42E, second to last.
I'm hovering right over the key
Okay,
button.
well, just give me time here. Remember, this is important.
I'm kidding.
Unless the occupant, not he occupant.
I'm sorry, I don't have my laptop out right now. Greg, are you, can you just quickly, we will absolutely make those changes. From what I'm hearing, those 2 changes, they're still gone.
I'm still going. Okay, so on page 47, number 25, the following schedules and form are an integral part of this agreement. They've left out are.
Smith.
Might it be possible for you to provide your list directly to Sean, and we will make all the changes that need to happen on the contract?
Those would be the last ones, except they.
I actually love that you're doing this, so there's not an issue with that, but it's easier for us to make the changes.
I would like to make the request, Councillor Charney, through the mayor. Are there any changes that would result in structural or intent changes in the contract? Because if they are, we should probably discuss them here. If they're typographical issues, then we can certainly fix them after the meeting.
I don't think anything changes the, no.
No gold star for you, Sean.
No,
Bronze star, right?
just piddly things.
That'll make me a lifeguard, I think. Isn't that what that?
So I have a quick question, Sean. We do have some, like you say, mobile home parks that if these people decided to move, will go into. Now, will they be made aware of the changes that will happen at mobile home parks as they go in? Because now everything changes. They have to be a certain height. Some have to be screwed down. Is that up to them to find that out, or will they have a little deal that will let them know that they have to find out what the new rules are for putting a mobile home in a mobile home park in Merritt now?
Thanks, Your Worship. That is a good question. It's outside of the scope of this particular program. This program is them purchasing, but it's actually kind of a scope that I'm working on with Lacey as well right now, in a different part of how that floodplain bylaw gets amended. And we do have actually some, for background information, there is some interested parties in town that have been working through, and Lacey's actually already informed them. The onus for that would be on the mobile home park owner at the time that they're permitting the property. It wouldn't necessarily be on the homeowner, because the mobile home park owner is the one applying for the permit to locate mobile homes on the pad. So it wouldn't be up to the resident who's purchasing it necessarily.
I just want, when we get to the end of the 2-year cycle, I just want everybody to be completely aware of what our rules are and what their new rules may be. I don't want anybody to say, hey, I wasn't told anything. That's all I'm doing here, so.
You bet.
Councilor Rogan.
So I'm just curious. So it's clear that the city is not trying to make any money from these transactions. It is clear that these tenants were, at least the first type of tenants, were directly impacted by the floods. And the other type of tenants, it's just because there was no enough housing in Merritt. So did we ever consider the rent to owned approach? Because I feel like the 5%, it's not enough for those people who have already moved because they were affected by the floods, and they know that they will be there, and they know that they are already interested in purchasing those units. Did we ever consider that approach?
We've discussed a rent to, thank you, Councilor Rogan, through the mayor. We have discussed a rent-to-own approach with the funders at the province. The discussion centered around how long the city would be running this project for. There was a fair amount of discussion even on extending it for another year of capital cost. The province, and likely the city, doesn't want to look at being a long-term landlord for these or any other properties. This program was originally pitched by the city to the province as a evergreen housing fund, where the equity was taken out of whatever program it is and recycled into another program. If council requests it, certainly that's something that we could bring up with them again. When we brought this forward, it was to exit the program, and that's what this funding has been. And this agreement has basically come out of the exact same wording in the contribution agreement, that the program would be executed. So we haven't done a ton of analysis into that because of the desire to not be a long-term landlord in these properties.
Hold on, Councilor. Do you wish to speak? Can I get you just turn your button off for a second when either, sir? Councilor Rogan, go ahead, second.
One more question. So
please.
When we talk about location, so I have talked to some of the residents that are using some of those units, and it may not be the ideal location for them. So is it possible for them to, if they are interested in purchasing the unit, to move the trailer before the term ends?
It's an excellent question. Yes, absolutely. So this contract would be executable immediately. We originally had a waiting period, I think, of a few months of the program, but we've already passed that at this point anyway. So if council approves these contracts after we make the requisite changes, they would be able to execute the contract immediately as soon as they would like to. So that would be completely up to them. They could execute it anytime between now and when they move out, or when the program ends before December 31st, 2025. And we will be working individually with people through that time period. One of the big reasons that we wanted to include the valuations on this and moved away from the fair market value approach, besides the fact that we don't want it to be juggling up in the air, is that we want people to be able to have a solid, firm number that they can go to their banks with, that they can save for, that they know in 2 years that is the amount of money that they're looking for. We tried very hard to make an approachable amount of money, but if somebody has a DFA payout or a land payout right now and just wants to be free and clear, they can absolutely execute this contract immediately.
Councilor Charney.
If a current tenant decides to leave right now and a new tenant moves in, would this apply to the new tenant also and the same time frame?
Thank you, Councilor Charney. Yes, it would. It applies to the current tenant in the property. So at the very far term, at the expiration of the program, who's ever in would get that last right of purchase before it moves to the open market. But if tenants switch out next month, that tenant would also get that right of purchase.
Councilor Newman.
Thank you, and I just wanted to thank Councillor Ogwin for his comments earlier. So that's the first that I've heard of that in regards to the fact that this could happen for them sooner if they so wish. So will that be clearly explained to each tenant that's there? Many of us do sign, or not us, but some people sign contracts without knowing exactly what's in them. But my concern would be that not everybody is clearly aware of that. It just, again, that was something brand new that I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that sooner than later, right? So.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. There is some people that may wish to defer it and take advantage of it later because it is a subsidized rent cost, and that really depends on what they're getting for insurance and et cetera. But for all of the people in the program, one of the benefits of this transitional housing program, we do have a little more admin cost in dealing directly with people and having mental health supports and having check-ins and then having an administrator of this program. But we actually have that exact item on our agenda. Once we couldn't take it until this is implemented. What we've been able to tell them so far is that we're working on a contract that would allow you to buy this property out when you see fit up to the end of the program. We haven't been able to tell them that that is the case, but certainly that actually was on our meeting today. In that, going forward, we'd be able to give them an answer one way or the other.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Petrosi.
Sean, what's the going rate of moving these? Say, Councillor Hogan talked to a few people that they would like to probably purchase and move it. What's the going rate right now for, say, moving? And then say in 2 years, it could be quite a bit more, so.
Thanks, Councillor Petrosi. It's a really good question. I've gone out for some feelers. A lot of the cost of moving these units is actually in prepping them for the move and the post-move work that's required. So when you think about this technical details on the ground, this is, a box that is a house effectively, but there's skirting, there's a roof cap for the furnace, there's utility hookups, disconnects, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of that type of cost could be done by the homeowner. Whoever owns a home could certainly disassemble the skirting, take out the insulation, remove the deck, et cetera. If they wanted it to be completely done by somebody else, we're getting indications that it could be between $15,000 and $25,000 to get it done by somebody else and assembled. But doing it themselves, they would obviously save a significant amount. That $5,000 was intended to offset the actual cost of the truck coming in, moving it over, hooking up utilities. All that other things would kind of be extraneous to that and would really, whether they did it or their father-in-law did it or they got a general contractor to do it, that would be a cost that they would bear.
It's nice to have the 5,000 written in there, but when you really look at what's available for land for mobile homes, because the C240 label has to be in a mobile home park, and our OCP was changed in September of 2020 that if you have any kind of double wide or probably the 4-bedroom units would be considered a double wide modular, has to go on a foundation. So that could be tricky. So probably only those people are going to be able, purchasing the 4 bedrooms, to put them on a foundation anywhere in Merritt, because really when you look around at our parks, what's open right now that has any availability and the high cost? Keep that in mind as well. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Etchart. As administrators of the program, we're unable to comment exactly on what kind of private land and opportunities there are now, or in obviously 2 years, we wouldn't know. Even now, we've identified a couple of sites that these can be moved into, but really it's not up to us under the purview of this program to decide where people move it to. We did work very hard to try and find some mechanism for these homes to stay in Merritt. It is a reasonable thing to do, reasonable question to bring up, and I do anticipate that as we move through and people start expressing their interest to purchase these homes, that we would work with development services to answer a few of those questions that perhaps the city wouldn't normally answer, but we are obviously committing to work, fairly closely with these people to answer those types of questions.
I think we have to remember this is the first time this has been done, so it's a beta program. So.
In BC.
Sarah Smith?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one nuance as well on the question of earlier buyout of the home and moving. encourage you to take a look at clause 17 of the contract. I think that's where it indicates it. But the short of it is that we as the city have subleased all of the different parcels within the 31 parcels within the mobile home park right now. So we're obligated to pay for those until September 30th, 2024, is what I wanted to say. And so if somebody buys out their property tomorrow, they would still be obligated to pay for the costs of this sublease that the city is paying up until the end of that September 30th, 2024. So
the tenant is responsible?
Yeah, so it's a cost that is being incurred by the city regardless. And so if you want to move it earlier, that's a cost that the city or that the tenant would choose to bear.
That's good clarification, thank you. So yeah, so they could either keep the unit and assuming they qualify, assume the payments on it, keep the unit in place, or move it at that time and pay the remainder of the payments. Good clarification, thank you.
Any other questions? I'll get you turned off your mic there, CEO Smith. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Strang, appreciate it. Thank you for all your hard work and plowing through this as a first timer, I appreciate it. So, we have a recommendation. The council approved the 10 HP buyout contracts for Phase 1 and Phase 2 residents and direct staff to provide program participants with these contracts as amended by Councillor Charney.
So moved.
Councillor Newman, I need a seconder. Councillor Petrosi, any other questions? Just, yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. It's good to have a teacher in the house. Keeps us on our toes, right? That's right, keeps us on our toes.
Quick temperature check. I see people rubbing their arms.
I'm fine.
Layers today.
I'm fine.
Pretty smart.
I'm here.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, moving on, 9.2, Cooks Ferry Transition Agreement, Cooks Ferry Transit Agreement, to be introduced by Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. BC Transit, City of Merritt, and Cooks Ferry Indian Band have been in discussion about the option to add the Anco 21 subdivision to the on-request transit service. This is the area adjacent to the southeast corner of Merritt on Fox Farm Road. This agreement would service that area on an as-needed basis, and we are proposing a $500 annual fee for the first year, which would be reviewed at the end of the first term. Riders would continue to pay the transit fee on a per-ride basis, as with all transit ferries. Cooks Ferry Indian Band had passed a band council resolution approving the signing of this agreement. And so the recommendation is that council approve the transit agreement with Cooks Ferry Indian Band, effective immediately, and authorize the Director of Finance to sign the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any questions on that?
No one will move the recommendation.
Councillor Newman, Councillor Etchart, any questions? Oh, Councillor Newman.
Are we going to earmark this for review in 1 year? I just know with all of our staff changes that all appropriate people won't be here in 1 year, so I'm just.
Would we be reviewing it or would Transit be reviewing it?
We have an annual operating agreement with BC Transit that's reviewed, and so this will come in conjunction with that, because we also have the Lower Nicola Indian Band as well, so.
Is, just further to that though, isn't the contract different dates than now? So would it be 1 year from today going forward, or would it be concurrent with the existing contract?
We would make it concurrent with the existing contract.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
No. Hold on, everyone. Councillor Etchart.
Well, I was just adding to the comment that Councillor Newman had, was that we review these every year when we review the lease and the equipment and the units that we have anyway. And so that's what we've done the last few years anyhow. And that's where I think at the last one where they talked, where we're at, 90% of pre-COVID ridership. So anyway. But that's it. I'm still in favor. Nothing changed.
And there's probably a real possibility we'll be meeting with Transit at UBCM anyway, so that's a question we can ask there. So I'll go again, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, appreciate that. Moving on to 9.3, Parcel Tax Review Panel. Mr. Lois, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're racing through this one. So the City of Merritt imposes parcel taxes, which we're entitled to do under Part 7, Division 4 of the Community Charter. These are imposed to defray the costs of certain services, in our case, the water parcel tax bylaw 2259 and the sewer parcel tax bylaw 2260. Because we have two parcel taxes, or any parcel taxes at all, we are required under the Community Charter to have a parcel tax review panel, which will hear any complaints for people who believe that a parcel tax has been improperly levied against them. And then we are required to advertise about it and to hear any complaints. One complaint has come in, and so we're looking now to convene that panel, so there's nobody who's currently appointed to it. So we're asking you to appoint 3 members to it. You can add more if you like. We're required by law to have a minimum of 3 members. That's in 204 subsection 2A. You must have at least 3 members on it, and you must pick a date for it to meet, which we are recommending someday in the first 2 weeks of July, so that we can give the required statutory notice and give anyone else who objects to the current parcel taxes the opportunity to submit the complaint.
Thank you. So this is where we touch on council. So Councillor Etchart has already texted me asking to be on this, so I would put Councillor Etchart's name forward. Is there anybody else who would like to sit on this? Councillor Charney, your hand's up. Good deal. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, you stuck your hand up.
I know. If we could meet before July 4, I would like to be on this, but after that, I'm not available in the other parts of July. Or the 3rd week I might be, but if it's possible to have it before July 4, if not, I will not put my name forward.
Through your worship to Councillor Charney, I'm just looking at the calendar. The issue there is that so we've got the July 3rd is the Canada Day stat day. And then because we're required to give notice under Section 94 of the Charter, which requires 2 sequential editions in 2 separate weeks in the Herald. So it would be very difficult to get it in this week's, which means the 2 editions would be June 22nd and June 29th. The law requires that people have at least 48 hours, submit their complaints at least 48 hours before it meets. So after the 29th, we've got 1 day, which is the Friday, then a weekend, then a stat day, and then Tuesday the 4th. So unfortunately, it would be very difficult to meet before the 4th.
Well, why don't we do it this way? Why don't you put your name forward, and I'll sub for you, because there's going to be more than one of these.
Okay.
And I can sub for you and fill in your spot until you're available. Councillor Charney's on the list. Is that okay with that?
Just to clarify the intended meeting schedule, Your Worship, the parcel tax review panel is required to meet once a year. Yep. So you'll have multiple meetings of this panel, but hopefully at least the next one wouldn't be until 2024.
That's fine.
Okay,
that's fine. Cool. That's fine. I need another victim. Oh.
I'll do it.
Councillor Newman. So that's 3 of us, and I'm allowed to be a de facto member, am I not, Mr. Laus?
Well, if you're filling in for Wendy, it becomes, unless you're planning on raising both hands and having super votes, it gets a little heavy. Okay,
no, just 1 vote.
Okay, it might be easier, Your Worship, to just to move the motion, at least at this point, appointing Mayor Getz and Councillors Etchart and Newman to the meeting, and
sure, let's do it that way.
And then the question would be when you want that to happen, if there's any dates that the 3 of you cannot make in the first 2 weeks of July.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. Recommendation that Council appoint Councillor Etchart, Councillor Newman, Mayor Getz to the parcel review panel, parcel tax review panel. I need a mover. Councillor Newman, Councillor Petrosi? All those in favor? Next recommendation, approved, opposed? No opposed. Recommendation that council instruct staff to advertise a meeting of the parcel tax review panel on date. What did you say the date should be there, Mr. Lawas?
Your Worship, the earliest it could be is Tuesday, July 4th, and we would recommend that you have it before Friday, July 14th, because just we know that there's a person who actively wants to make a complaint and have their request heard. So at some point in that 10-day window.
Let me read that again. The council instructs staff to advertise a meeting of the parcel tax review panel on July 4th and before July 14th of 2023. Any questions? All those in favor?
So, Your Worship, it might be easiest while the three of you are here to just ask if there's any date that the three of you are not available, because, or that you would particularly prefer, and then we can just write that single one date.
Oh, right, I guess leaving it far too open, right, okay.
Sorry, in which time frame?
July
4th to 14th of July.
4th to 14th. I'm fine, any of those days, I think.
How about July 5th or 6th? Do you have TNRD on those?
No, it's always in the third week.
I would prefer between the 11th and 14th, if at all possible. The subsequent later week.
We have the council on the 11th.
Yep. How about 12th?
Well, how are you on the 12th?
13th. Oh. 14th?
We're the 13th. That's always a bad day for everybody.
My favorite day is today. The mayor has TNRD on the 13th.
Yes, I can make it on the 13th.
How long is the meeting? Do we?
One person, probably not that long.
Not long. Do you want to do it? Can we do it right before the council meeting? And then do 2 in one day? Done, quick, easy?
That's on the 11th?
Yeah.
All that.
11th? Okay.
Yeah, like
Sure.
we'll do it 5 o'clock or something like that.
Okay.
Okay, I like that.
Okay, let me just read that again. The council instructs staff to advertise a meeting of the parcel tax review panel on July 11th
At 5 p.m.
at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Also known as Slurpee Days.
So we're all on board with that?
It is Slurpee Day, yes.
I'm just going to write this
The
down.
things you learn from us.
Parcel tax.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed. Good deal. Thank you, everyone, for your patience on that one. On we go to 9.4, UBCM meeting request to be introduced by Mr. Lawas.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this is the annual opportunity that we have to go and speak directly to senior government ministers. It's a fantastic opportunity that Merritt's done pretty well on in recent years. I think the last 3 years we've been able to talk to the Premier of the province, we've been able to talk to people like the Solicitor General, the Attorney General, various other ministries, and raise issues which directly affect Merritt, and where people can, where ministers can just tilt things in our direction if possible, or at least have the opportunity to lobby them and explain why they should think about doing so. As a small municipality, this is really one of the only times during the year that we really actually get to bend their ears, not one-on-one, but 7-on-1. And so we've now had the request booklet come out, which was appended to your agenda package. You don't need to make any directions tonight if you don't want to, but if you do have any questions or things that you would like raised, then we pretty much do need those tonight, because there's only one other meeting before the deadline for these meeting requests to be put in. The key thing that ministries have made very clear to us in the past is that if you are seeking a meeting with a minister, it's really important that you have a concrete, specific ask that you want to take to them, rather than just a general, FYI, we're having problems. Why is it that you want to sit down with that minister, and what is it that they can do to help alleviate our issues? So if you have any initial ideas of what you would like to do with that this year at the UBCM conference, then we would love to hear those tonight. Or alternatively, as I say, if you have any questions or need any further research done, then now is a good opportunity to request that to come to the next meeting of council.
Thank you, Mr. Wills. So I'm just going to rattle off the ones I have, and then you guys can let me know where you stand on it. So I would like to, Minister Ann Kang, Municipal Affairs. I talked to her at SOGA, and I think we will need some help from her on our DMAF application and getting some money coming here to help us. I would like to, now here's where I'm a little confused. Attorney General and Minister of Public Safety, are they not the same people? Okay. So I'll leave that. I would like to visit Beaumont, EMCR, same reasons, DMAF and DFA and other issues that we're having issues with. One that I have a question mark, and I ask Council to let me know how you feel. Minister Ralston on Ministry of Forests. Check. Adrian Dix, Ministry of Health. Minister of Housing, I have a question mark. Check. Okay. Jennifer Whiteside, Housing and Addictions. I'd like clear view on the 2.5 decrim and the dashboard that we were promised in June that has not shown up yet, and I'm wondering where that is, because we still don't have any kind of a valid path on where we're going with that. Minister of Public Safety, and I believe that's Mr. Farnsworth, is it not? I'd like to talk to him about a couple of things. One of them is our policing situation, as well as the tactical assault team deal that I talked to him about. The way they have the cost structure for getting money back is confusing and not really conducive to the communities. Minister of Tourism, Sport and Art, I would like to get their view on our theater society and that kind of thing. So, also the Minister of Water, Land and Resources, because once we start the ability to redo diking, they have to be very involved with that as we go up the river. There's all sorts of things that have to happen. So I think just speaking with them, letting them know that there's a project coming would be a good idea. But that's just me. Now I will open up Councillor Newman.
You actually, every single one of them was on my list, so I am good.
Councillor Etcher.
Well, I agreed with Councillor Newman and what you had to say. Those ministries are what I would hope for to get to have meetings with. But if we make these decisions now about who we want to meet with, are we going to have a sub-meeting so we can kind of script what? Yeah, okay. Let's just get our name in about this.
You already know that there's going to be rejection on these. We're not going to get them all. There always is.
We've had good luck in getting most in the past.
Now, in the past, on every council that I've sat on, we went to see the Premier just out of respect for the Premier, just to say, hello, how are you, thank you for everything you're doing. Is there any interest in that, or is that wasting his time? Because I really don't think I have anything that I need to speak to the Premier about, or if any of you do. I just really don't want to take up somebody's time if I don't have to. CEO Smith.
I would just highly recommend always seeing the Premier, even if you're just providing a summary of here's the 9 things we talked about with your various ministers, so that they're aware of it, because it always ends up coming back to the Premier if it's a major initiative anyways. And so I would recommend it, and we've had good traction with that in the past.
Yeah. And then we would love to see the Premier as well.
Keep the traction on DMAF.
Yeah, we have to.
Thanks.
Councillor Rogan.
Sorry, Mayor, did you mention Ministry of Labor?
No, I did not.
Okay, so right now when I have met with the business community, and as you know, the lack of labor force, lack of workers, so it has had an impact in many communities. So I'm dealing with the labor market impact assessment to assisting some of these businesses to bring people from overseas. So I would like to meet with the minister to express the issues that we are facing right now to secure these LMIAs.
Yep, Minister of Labor would be fine with me. And anyone else, anything we missed, anyone else?
Is there any left?
Well, there's housing.
I know you said that.
Did I say housing? Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's a couple, I don't know. But again, we aren't going to get to see them all, that's a fact. Councillor CEO Smith?
The one thing that I'd say as well, last year Merritt was commended by a number of different ministries for being one of the best prepared municipalities in terms of coming in with concrete asks and some documentation that they could take home. And so of course, at this meeting, we're talking about what those asks are going to be. The more lead time we can get as staff, we can prepare those primers and have one-pagers for each one of those ministry visits, because they do make a difference. And where we have had actual concrete success of something happen, it's always been because we were the best prepared ones there. So earlier the better on that.
Yep. So what I would request probably by end of tomorrow, if there's something we've missed, and you know which ones we've mentioned, that if there's questions you'd like to ask, I have a few that I'll get to Mr. Lawes as quickly as possible. Councillor Newman.
Just to follow up on the minister meetings, just in regards to the Minister for us, so Minister Ralston, we do have a resolution going to the floor at UBCM, so that's obviously something that would be included in those briefing notes. And then I would say the same for Minister Dix, Adrian Dix, that we include that resolution as well.
Yep. Councillor Charney.
You said you're going to get a package or information about what we're going to be talking about?
Sue Smith.
Yeah, I suspect how this will work is we will set up a committee of the whole where we can refine what it is specifically that you want as your ask, and we can come back and build out the information around your ask, but we want you to be driving the asks themselves.
Well, I was just saying is we'll have lead time to read it and do some of our own research and all that. Okay.
Ideally, it hasn't always worked that way, depending on how quickly we can put it together. Because one of the challenges is that we're not going to want to spend a ton of time on the actual hard copy, like the beautiful programming. You want to know what you're going to ask people, and you submit that when you make the request, but you're not going to prepare something beautiful until you find out we're giving you the thumbs up that you actually get the meeting. So sometimes that's been really good, and that's come with more than a month, and you have lots of time to do that. Other times that's come through like 4 days beforehand, and we're scrambling in the event to make the actual materials. So don't hold us to it that it's all going to be done in time. It'll depend on when we get the thumbs up on the meetings.
I've also experienced at UBCM where another meeting has canceled before us and they've called you in early, so you've had even less time to prepare.
So just so you know, I shared the story of how unprepared we were once and how embarrassing it was. So one of the things that we will do each night before game time is we will go over every single thing every single night, so we're prepared for the next day. The way I prefer to do it is I prefer that each councillor, if we have enough, presents to the minister, and just so you get your feet wet. And so you understand, for councillors that haven't been in there, we have 15 minutes from the minute we hit this chair. So you do your introductions quick and you start speaking because you have 15 minutes, that's it. And so, yeah, we will be uber prepared because I don't want to ever be embarrassed in front of ministers again. It's not a good feeling. Okay, so the recommendation that we have, any other questions before we move on? The recommendation we have before us is that council provides staff with direction as to which ministries they wish to request meetings with and what priority and on what topics. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.5. Oh, I am on 9.5. Enforcement of Good Neighbor Bylaw in Flood Inundation Zone, to be introduced by Ms. Brick. Ms. Brick?
Thank you, Your Worship. On November 22nd, Council considered a report from the Director of Corporate Services in regards to the city's Good Neighbor Bylaw and how it was being enforced in the flood inundation zone. Council passed a resolution that instructed staff to continue with selective enforcement based on the specific situation of each property, and that Council was going to revisit this on April 30th, 2023. We are now bringing this report back in front of Council as the resolution has expired, and we are seeking further direction in regards to enforcement of the Good Neighbor Bylaw in the flood inundation zone. So I can give a bit of an overview as to what the situation is in the flood zone. There are some properties that have been restored. Owners have moved back in. Meanwhile, across the street in some cases, the properties may never be lived in again. So there is lots going on there, a variety of situations for everyone. We are starting to see concerns raised by those that have moved back into the flood inundation zone, whether it be with materials that are still remaining outside on the property. As of June 2022, all of the supporting agencies have left the city, so we don't have any further assistance from Christian Aid Ministries or the Red Cross or anything like that. So the onus is now on the homeowner to do the cleanup on their properties. We're also getting concerns due to forest fire season that some of the grass and the weeds are getting rather tall in some of the properties, and this is a concern throughout the city. We've been addressing it proactively throughout the city. We would really like to be able to address this proactively in this area as well.
Thank you.
And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. So on November 22nd, I brought this forward because I was at the point where I thought everybody had had enough time to get their SHPO right. So I would like to see it returned to the way it is everywhere else in the community. So that's just me. Councillor Newman.
I just had a question in regards to the homes that you mentioned that nobody's returning to, and that they are. Is there a time frame to get rid of these homes or demolish them completely to a point where they are just vacant lots? If somebody has said that they are not coming back and the home is unlivable, how long does it stay on that property in the state that it's in, and how long do we allow that to happen?
I don't know if that would go through any possible discussions around purchase of homes or anything like that. Of course, the city hasn't had that. We don't want to preempt any of those conversations. At this point, it is entirely up to the owners as to what they do with their properties. They are private homes.
Councillor Charlie.
To add to Councillor Newman, it is very expensive to demolish a house. It could be up to $60,000 or more, so I think that might be one of the reasons. But I agree with your worship. Sorry, that these people have had a lot of time to address the situation. Has there been any communication with the homes as to why they have not cleaned up?
We haven't had any conversations with the individual homeowners. I see that the CO microphone is blinking.
Yeah, you could continue on with the answer to that question. Mine was in response to Councillor Newman.
Well, I've had some conversations with a couple of people on my street that are in this position where the house is completely empty but still standing. Mm-hmm. One gentleman is actually living in a big motorhome. He was caught with no insurance, nothing. DMF or DFA was no help. So he does not have the ability to knock the house down. But at some point, a decision has to be made. Yeah. It can't be left like that forever. So I think that's another kettle of fish that we're going to have to boil a little later down the road, because this is not the only home that's in that state on my street. There's about 3 of them that are clearly empty and either have been abandoned or a couple are still waiting for an insurance settlement, and it's a fight. So I think with those homes, we give them a little bit more time. And I have to be honest with you, the people that have the shell of a home and are living somewhere else still upkeep the yards. They cut the yards, they keep the weeds down, they fix the fences, et cetera, et cetera. So they are doing that. They just have not totally abandoned it. So, but there will come a time where we'll have to have some hard conversations on that. And that will be in the future, because there is going to have to be some discussion on that. Councillor Charney.
What have the other communities done, like Grand Forks? Do we know what they did with houses that were not fixed up and left abandoned?
Sean's not here, but I will happily speak to this as best as I can. Every community has really adopted a situational approach to this exact question, largely because the circumstances just differ. Grand Forks, the community that was worst hit within Grand Forks, was all subject to their buyout program, and so they have a little bit of a different scenario. I would probably say that even if we were to come up with something here, those that are in the areas that have been identified as potential for future diking, we would probably treat differently than those that are identified outside of that area. But as it stands right now, what I do know has been done in some jurisdictions has been the equivalent, primarily in Alberta, has been the equivalent of the remedial action requirements for nuisance properties. And so at some point, if a property is derelict and not lived in, there is an opportunity for the city to take direct action if the owner does not take action themselves. That's not the conversation for today, for sure. I know we're not there, but you're asking when is that day. I think that it will become quite obvious to you when it is, but I will promise you it is not today. I think that if we have properties that are still unlived in and abandoned that are outside of those property buyout areas 2 years from now, the conversation might look very different for you guys.
Councillor Troy?
I do know that some of the houses that have been abandoned are fire hazards behind us. The high school kids frequent that house just about daily and just waiting for it to catch on fire. So I think that's another issue that we have to look at. And I know on Pine Street there's some other houses that it's just a fire waiting to happen. So I think we have to look at that also.
And that's and I hate to be rude about it, but this is the problem with DMAF and the land buyout. This should have been taken care of by now, but it hasn't been. We're going to be almost 2 years still asking the same question. So it's very obviously what needs to happen with these homes that need to be bought out. They need to be bought out. Promises that were made need to be kept. It's that simple. And we'll continue to go down that road until we get it. The people like in my area that are not even close to the dike that just did not have adequate funding or insurance, that becomes, I think, a situation that they have to deal with. Because you live 100 feet from a river, you probably should have overland water insurance.
Yeah, I'll just close by saying that if council is considering this on a situational basis, I'd recommend striking up something of a nuisance property review panel or something like that that would make recommendations as to which ones we would consider, not actually make the decision on, because that would come back to council as a whole, but consider moving forward with remedial action requirements on. So that is in your purview. If you decide as council that you would like to go that route, that's something that you can do.
Councillor Richard.
Well, I think that we've given enough time to give people time to clean up. We have to either consider a panel or enforce this bylaw, because the problem is that there's a lot of neighbors that complain to all of us on a regular basis about the weeds or rats, or that somebody has their whole house in their yard and they're looking at it, or whatever the case may be. I know I've talked to a lot of people, and we all have, and you live in the zone 4, so it's affecting us all. And the people that have taken the effort to clean up their homes are feeling like we're not listening to them. So 2 summers, this is the second summer, we have to do something. Maybe a review panel, but I would be in favor of enforcing this good neighbor bylaw. I think we have given ample time, and maybe we won't find them, but if we don't do anything, people are going to be upset with us. So that's my thoughts.
I think with DMAF reopening in July and a new CAO coming on board, I think our discussion down the road about a panel on, I think we need to let that all settle in, because if DMAF is accepted, that might start to alleviate some of the 37 properties but it's the ones that are abandoned away from the dike and the buyout that we probably will have to address at some point. Councillor Hogan.
So yeah, I feel like the city has been flexible. So it's been close to 19 months since the flood happened. I assuming that we inform people in that zone when we stop enforcing the good neighbor bylaw. So I'm okay with start enforcing this bylaw with a little bit of notification. So I don't want to say that starting today we are going to be enforcing, right? So you can give them maybe 30 days notice saying as of this date the enforcement of good neighbor bylaw will happen, so that they are aware and it's very well notified.
Councillor Newman.
Yes, I was actually just going to say the exact same thing, that, maybe with summer coming and we have July here, maybe it's fair to say like the end of July or the first day of August, something like that. That gives everybody a month of good weather and hopefully nothing tremendous that happens during this time, that we just say, yeah, as of August 1st, this bylaw will be implemented, and gives everybody some time and fair warning that, the dumps are open, clean up, cut the grass, do all the good fun things, and then we mean business. I think as an entire council, we have a big job ahead of us, and we've all said that we are looking forward to cleaning up Merritt.
Councillor Petrosi.
I totally agree. I think the public have had enough time, 19 months, and we're trying to be fire smart at the same time, and a lot of these properties, we're, coming into summer, there's fires all over Canada right now, so could get a lot hotter, and I think we have to move forward and start enforcing this.
C.O. Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to be clear on the expectations of council here. So there's really two notifications then. One is the general notification for enforcement will start this date. And then at that point, we would be sending out the individual notifications saying, hey, you have 3 weeks to clean up your property or else we'll come to it. Is that the expectation of council?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need this?
Oh, you're on.
It wasn't? So we just need this in the form of a motion? Because it's not on the table. Okay, I will make that in the form of a motion that we aim for. It's July 30th as a cutoff date, and then April 1st going forward to proceed with the notification to the property owners. August.
April.
Sorry, August. Not going backwards.
No, I was thinking about next April.
July and August, sorry.
Mr. Lawless.
Forgive me, Your Worship, before that's moved, seconded and voted on, done, just to make it easier, if this does change anything, although it may very well not, I did just want to flag with you one of the comments that was made about moving into summer. If you do choose to say that you're setting a general notice now that we will start sending notices at the end of July, then that means that, say, if there is a property which is currently covered in long grass, then we will, at the end of July, be sending them notice to clear it up, which means the actual cleanup will not happen until mid-August. And just wanted to alert you to the fact that by that point we could be deep into a very hot summer. So it's entirely up to your choice if that is the instruction you want to give. I just wanted to make sure we talked through the implications.
Question? If we were to, and I mean, we're still only at the beginning stages of April, why do I keep saying this? June, so to speak. Yes, it was. But so maybe like that we're halfway through June, maybe we implement this at the end of June, and then that gives us to the July 1st sending out notices, although yes, I know that's a stab, but that would be the first week of July, and that would expedite something, but still give enough fair warning for people. I would be in favor of that, if that's a friendly amendment to the motion, end of June.
C.O. Smith.
I am not 100% sure on this, but I'm going to raise one other wrinkle to Greg's wrinkle. Based on fire conditions, we actually don't always recommend going out and cutting tall grasses because often the act of cutting the grass is what starts the fire. And so one of the things that comes from the fire chief is that if we're going to make moves like that, you want to be doing it before you get into your really dry, potentially high vulnerability fire season. And so even I'm not even 100% sure about now. I would have to talk with the fire chief, and he's not here. But I will say that there is some degree of risk, and we would always do this with the recommendation of the fire chief. So I don't want to set an expectation that we're going to be mowing all this stuff down if the fire chief is like, hey, this is a horrible idea. Do not be encouraging people to go do this unless they're using hand tools. And if it's a big property, asking people to use hand tools is not necessarily a fair or reasonable request. So we will work on that, use whatever dates you want, and we'll just make sure that we build that consideration into this process.
And that would be reported back?
Nope.
That would be clearly reported back to council, so at least that we are aware that when we are doing this, that, it is under, the process has started and the fire chief has said, no, this is not good to go ahead with this, so at least council is aware of it, because quite often we get approached by people who know things and we might not have that answer, so it's better for us to know that than not.
C.O. Smith. Oh.
No.
Ms.
Would
Brick?
council be satisfied with us sending out an email to say we are starting this process? These are the dates. That way you are aware of it, but we're not doing a formal report to council, and then we're able to proceed as we need to move forward with it?
100%.
Okay.
The sooner the better.
So any other questions?
Can we call it, what's the motion?
Well, I'm sure that Mr. Lawis knows what the motion is.
Thank you, Worship. So at this point, I believe what's the case is that you're looking at a motion that the wording as suggested to proactively enforce the bylaw from. So to begin enforcement at the end of June 2023, and then that was, and then with the expectation that letters would be sent, if necessary, with dates looking around the middle of July. But then that has yet to be moved and seconded and would then be voted upon.
I moved it.
Yep.
Yay for second.
Yep. I'll second it. And then we will also have the input from the fire department on that as well. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Lawis, Mr. Smith, and Ms. Brick for your guidance. I appreciate it. Notices of motion? None. Reports from council, and I am going to give the floor to Councillor Etchart for his report. Who do you?
Thank you. Well, a lot has happened in 3 weeks, and it feels like it's been more than 3 weeks. Mayor Getz and myself went to the FCM conference, and we were a little nervous that we were going to miss a plane. Thanks, WestJet. They warned us, run to the gate, run. Don't use the washroom, run. You might miss it. So that was a little stressful. But we had some really good tours. There was some really good plenaries that they had. I know that I went on a tour with Social Innovation to see what we could do with some of the different business communities. Also, with some of the building schemes that they have, it's nice to see what they have for the mid-rise buildings and different options that we have with providing shade and different options for consideration in the future. And, oh God, lots of things that have happened besides that from then. We had our school board meeting that we attended discussing about options, and I know that there's been other events. There was the fundraiser event that happened on the weekend, and I think that was well attended by all of us as well. Other events that have happened that I'm not even thinking of right now. But whatever I've missed, I know that everybody else will mention. So that's it.
Thank you. As Councillor Etchart mentioned, we were at FCM from the 24th to 28th, and while I was there, I went on a tour of the Greater Toronto Public Library, and wow, what an eye-opener. It's not your father's library anymore, I got to be honest with you. They have rooms such as digital innovation hub where people can go in and use sergers and learn how to create, and that's a lab they have set up there, and everything is free. They have a fabrication studio where it's 3D printing, so people can come in and 3D print, learn to 3D print and be taught how to do it, and everything is free. And then they have an e-learning lab where students can come in and learn how to code correctly and create robots and all this other kind of stuff. Very, very neat. And one of the things that I found really amazing is the library is set in a way where it's not segregated, but set up for every group. Like the teenage area was a set of stairs that was probably 30 feet high and about as wide as this room, and it was just stairs. There was nothing else but stairs. I went to nowhere, but that's where all the kids would sit. So and that was their area. So I thought it was really neat. It's a very large library, and I'm really glad I went. The opening ceremony was great. We got to hear from the Prime Minister, and the applause was sparse, I must say. The plenary was interesting. 4 items. Took us 3 hours for 4 items. And it was amendment after amendment after amendment after amendment. It was unbelievable. Anyways, but 4 items for all of Canada. I guess you can figure out where it's coming from. We also went to the Toronto Museum. We got to listen to Jasmeet Singh, and I had a meeting with the new president, Scott Pierce, regarding the cost of flooding, the failure of DMAF, and the human cost to a flooding situation. And I've been very frank with Scott that FCM has to become very involved in climate change and/or what happens when communities start to rebuild, that FCM has to be very involved, because FCM was the curator of the gas tax. Without FCM, we would have never gotten the gas tax. So they do have some pull, they do have some situations. I do have a meeting with him and another person tomorrow morning to keep discussing the conversation, so we're going to move in on that. Councillor Etchart and I got back, and within seconds was at a school board meeting on June 29th, all in our travel garb. June 1st, TNRD, we had a question and answer with Minister Farnsworth, which was well received at the TNRD. I hit him with something that made him look like a deer in the headlights, but that's okay. I gave him a paper so he can respond to it later. He wasn't ready for that one. June 2nd, I sat with the Academic Research and Community Response. They're doing a documentary. It's the University of Alberta and what happens in a community that is rebuilding after a flood, and I did a 4-hour tour and an interview with them, and they are in town for the next 2 weeks to meeting with everyone and anyone that wants to go through this whole thing on how the flood affected them and where they're going. I went to the Aspen Solar Open House on June 6th, the Wildfire Risks Civic Center, same day. On June 8th, I went to the NVIT grad ceremony, which was really enjoyable. It was nice to see all those kids graduating and how excited everybody was. Gas prices, here we go. Today in Merritt, 171.9 is our low, 173.9 is our high. Kelowna, 179.9 is their low, 183.9 is their high. Prince George, 163.9 is their low, 179.9 is their high. Vancouver, 202.9 is their low, 205.9 is their high. And here's one that surprised me. Princeton, 186 all across the board, 0.9. Tomorrow is Pizza with a Cop from noon till 1, if you are so inclined. It's really good to go over it. The Jen and Everett Biddlecombe fundraiser went really well. I want to thank Councillor Egan for all the help she did with us and the grant for kicking in. I want to thank Darius and Zach for getting the message out for us as they did. It wouldn't have happened without full community input. It was well received, and Jen has confirmed that they probably have raised enough money to cover the hotel costs for the whole time they're down there, so they don't have to worry about that. And good news, Mr. Biddlecombe is next on the list, so he's been moved to the next. So prayers and everything for them, and they do have a GoFundMe page if you're so inclined. But Jen was very emotionally spent at the end of the night, and I told her that Merritt takes care of their own, and we certainly do. So I want to thank everybody in Merritt that attended that, and Councillor Charney got an awesome fire pit out of it, so how can you go wrong? We had great prizes from the groups in town, so I thank everyone. Anyways, that's enough for me blabbering on. Who's the winner here? Councillor Charney, you're up.
Oh, okay. May 25, that's the only date I have. I attended the Schwalcom Health Services online, as well as Councillor Newman. And I was surprised to hear the old hub building is now going to be a Schwalcom Health Services, which will be opening in July. And their new primary care clinic will include traditional wellness, primary care, allied health, mobile programming, community support, and virtual care. So I was quite surprised to hear that. I went to the Enbridge presentation and learned a lot of things about how they're going to be forging ahead. And they're going to have 3 piles. They're going to have rocks, they're going to have topsoil, and then what's under the topsoil. I can't remember that. So that's very interesting there. Chalou's unveiling ceremony. There, look at the technology, guys. Yeah, went to the unveiling ceremony. I was joined by Councillor Newman and MLA Taggart. This is a memorial service for veterans of World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. It was a very extremely hot day, but it was well attended, and I think it was a very good ceremony. I also attended the school board meeting. I went to the Aspen Solar open house and learned that will be a 40-year project for BC Hydro, and then it will be discontinued. I went to the wildfire risk with Krista Menard, and learned that the fire embers are the worst risk to anything. They'll travel 2 kilometers, and I also realized that my house is a candidate for a wildfire immediately because it has a lot of bad things going on. This is terrible. Wood on the back porch, wood under the back porch.
Wood around the back.
Wood around the back porch. Element Agriculture I went to, and this is using dairy cow's manure to make fertilizer pellets, and apparently there's very little fertilizer. And there we have a picture of CEO Smith actually picking it up and smelling it, and then he gets his hands right in, and then, believe it or not, he goes and shakes someone's hand with that hand that is holding the manure.
It was
So-
a family.
That was a relative, so I figured that, yeah, okay, go for it, bud. But, and it's dirt, yeah, right, with dirt with something else in it, too. I went to the senior luncheon, their monthly meeting, and Gareth Tilt, our new safety training officer, gave a presentation. Two very important things. Make sure you close your bedroom door before you go to bed. They had a demonstration of a closed bedroom door and an open bedroom door. You'd be amazed at the difference. So the phrase, close before you doze, it's important. New furniture versus old furniture was very interesting. Your grandmother's furniture, which is solid wood, is not going to catch on fire as quickly as our new polyester stuff. So if you can find old furniture, go for it. I also went to the fundraiser, and yes, I did bid successfully on a fire pit, and I'd like to thank Dana and Mike for Councillor Egan and Mayor for all the work they did on that. It was tremendous. And I'd also like to mention that coming across the A&W Bridge last week, I saw the pictures on the wall, so I stopped and talked to the artist, Leonard George. He was working on this painting. And you know, as you come over that bridge, it hits you. And I think this is a great program that the Arts Council is doing. And so, you know, that struck me right away. And last but not least, we had a barbecue dinner for our leaving CAO. And there he is, cutting his cake.
Have this primed in advance.
Yes, isn't that, look at that. Yeah, the whiteboard cake. So anyway, I was very pleased to include technology in my report this time. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and I got my certificate today for the 4 Seasons of Reconciliation. I took the course, and when it says 1 to 3 hours, do not believe that. That is false. Did you do it in 1 to 3 hours?
It was around 3. Yeah.
Okay, you're on the ball more than I am.
I'm pretty close, like I'm halfway mark right now, and
I'm not. I was a little slower, but it was more than that. But anyway, I got my certificate. Very proud of that. Yes.
Well, so Councillor Charney and I have been buddies lately, so we have attended a lot of the same events, and which is great, but I'm only going to report on the ones I wasn't at with her. So on Saturday, May 27th, we had the drag racing here at the airport, and for such a short notice event, I just want to, and unfortunately the weather didn't hold up, but it was excellent, and I would really like to see us reach out to the organizers of that event sooner than later, because my understanding is this is going, they do this annually, and I really think next year we can make, good to hear, it a bigger and better event. Like, it was excellent. We had a great day out there. Had the weather been better, but I think all those that showed up had a great time. The food trucks were awesome. I think I tried 2 different ones, and the hot dogs were back, so that was good. So Councillor Charney mentioned the veterans event that we went to, which they kind of messed up our names, but we became one councillor together. We're Councillor Claire Wendy Charney Newman. That was who we were. So, but it was really good. It was nice to see a huge turnout there. It was actually, I would say there was at least 200 people. I'd say at least. And as Councillor Charney said, it was so hot on that blacktop that chairs were actually sinking into the blacktop because it was so hot. It was a sweltering day, and the plane did go over at exactly 11:11, so they synced that up perfectly. May 30th was business after business at downtown at the Hall of Honor and the museum, and it was a great turnout. It was nice to see meet a bunch of new people, which was wonderful. You talked about the Fire Smart dinner, the barbecue. This week at the rodeo grounds, there was the Backcountry Horseman Rodeo. It was packed down there on Sunday, and that was the closing. So well done to all those that volunteered and did what they do at the rodeo. I'm new to it, so it was at least nice to see the parking lots packed and the stands were cheering. And I believe this weekend at the rodeo grounds is the Kennel Club is here. So just to keep your eyes peeled on those that are around town. And I think it's both Saturday and Sunday. So that's it for me.
Councilor Petrosi. I just wanted to thank Councillor Charney. First class get together last week. Thank you very much for hosting that. I think we all had a good time. The food was great. Thank you. May 29th, I attended with a lot of you the Board of Education meeting at the school district office. I dropped in and took a tour of the Nicola Food Bank, Valley Food Bank. And I don't know if you've been in there, but jam-packed with freezers, fridges, and spoke to the ladies there, and they do a wonderful job. No air conditioning in there, if you can believe it, so they're trying to do a job there with, very limited. Pretty excited to see all the projects happening around town. Lots of digging going around. I've had the public comment on that to me. So what else? Pizza with the Cop tomorrow. You didn't mention Spirit Square. It's where it's happening. So compliments of the community policing office. So that's about it.
And I'd just like to take a moment to say thank you to Councillor Newman for filling in for me on the dedication. Laura and Nicola, I appreciate it. Thank you.
They were happy to have us there.
Yeah, thank you very much, even though you were all one person. So, any other notices? Okay, thank you. Information items. We have 3 in front of us. Anybody have any questions on the 3? Councillor Newman?
Not that it's a question, but I would like to flag 12.2, the Nicola Valley Logging Contractors Letter that was sent essentially to every forestry industry-related people, MLAs, MPs, and I just would like to see that we follow up on this and keep a close eye on it. It did go to the Minister of Forests, obviously, and with grave concern for our community. Obviously, our mill is not up to its operational standards yet, and our community has been affected by this, and not necessarily with just the mill, but the spin-offs as well, and I just want to make sure that this is not lost, and if we could possibly, I'm not sure who this organization is, the Nicola Valley Logging Contractors, if it's an actual organization or it's a person speaking on behalf of all of them.
I'll be meeting with Howard McKimmon this coming week.
Excellent.
John Rustad is, who's the new leader of the Conservatives, I believe, is involved with this as well. So I had a meeting with Aspen Planers this morning, Surinder and Surinder Senior, and the way we look at it is many allies as we can get on board for this. So there will be a meeting with Howard, and I'll be able to bring you some more information after I have the meeting with him. And Howard, of course, is probably the largest logging truck owner in this town. They're all over the place. So,
and that's essentially why I wanted to bring this up. I just would like to, obviously you're doing some background work, but yeah, no, I definitely would like to hope that Minister Ralston will respond in a timely manner, and if not, we could follow up on their behalf.
You bet. Are you done, Councillor?
Yep, that's it.
Councillor Rogan?
So this is regarding 12.1 BC Interior Community Foundation. If nobody has planned to attend the AGM, I would like to volunteer myself to attend in Kamloops. It's on the 15th, so that would be this Thursday from 5 to 7.
Go ahead, Councillor Newman.
Just a question in regards to this, because I have dealt with them in the past through Logan Lake. Do they not come to our community and do a presentation or anything annually or biannually?
I have to be honest with you, Councillor Newman. When this came to us, we were all stumped, to be honest with you. We really haven't seen much of this before, so I think if Councillor Oden would like to attend, I'd be more than happy to have him go and bring back some information, because we're honestly a little stumped on what this is, actually.
Yeah, and my understanding, if it's, the city of Merritt has probably done a contribution to this foundation, much like Logan Lake did years and years ago, and we receive an interest payment annually.
I can speak to what I know of it. So they did come 2 years ago, 2 different times, and the idea here is that they allow people to, primarily it's when they pass, to leave things to various foundations, and so oftentimes they're trying to encourage people to allocate those to very local specific things. So if you love the rodeo, you can give money to the rodeo through BC Interior Community Foundation. And so what this is, and it's not a huge amount of money for right now, I think, is people that have left either things in the will or have donated otherwise to those types of initiatives. And so this is money that's moving around the community. But what I'm not 100% sure I understand the numbers. I looked at exactly what this is and how the balance works, what the interest is, et cetera, and it's not mapping out for me, but I'm also not an expert at this, so I would love someone to go figure it out, even though it is a really small amount of money. Hopefully over time it does grow.
And my experience with this is that it doesn't grow much. It just does the same payments year after year after year. It's just, it'd be nice to know the history behind it. If we could get something from them, that would be good.
And is everybody okay with Councillor Elgin going to the event? I'm fine with it. Big thumbs up. Off you go. Enjoy yourself. Bring us back a T-shirt or something. Just a reminder, we do have the council to council tomorrow night with the Coldwater Indian Band, 5:30. So I got. Thank you for letting me know.
Where is it being moved?
Out in Coldwater.
At the school or their office?
I believe it's the school. Yeah. So anything else from anyone? With that, we'll terminate the meeting. Thank you very much. You betcha.